What's going on, San Diego? Jon and Jim on a Tuesday. Happy New Year, January 2nd, 2024. I've already messed it up already, Brent. I put something down today at 2023. So that's on me. It'll probably go on for the next couple of weeks or so.
I haven't had to date anything yet. So
because we're doing a lot of stuff for our wedding. So I had to date something, and I immediately put 2023, and then I had to cross it out, and then it looked bad. And then it was like, Aaron's like, you messed it up. And I was like, oh, dang. So anyway, Happy New Year, everybody. I am back, but Jon is not. Jon is gone right now, and I'm not going to get really. Jon will be back in a couple days. He'll be back on Thursday, and I'm not going to get into why Jon is gone, but I just want to say, we're all thinking of Jon. Everything's okay with him. Don't worry, everything's fine. But if you're out there, just maybe send a well wishes to Jon, and he'll be back with us on Thursday. So everything's fine with him. Don't worry. But yeah, he'll be gone for a couple of days, and just send your thoughts to Jon right now. And we will talk to him on Thursday. But, I missed the last week, Brent. I've been gone for 10 days. It's a weird feeling. I was like going through the whole break. I'm like, what is happening? Like I should be working right now, but I'm not, because I've had never had that long off. I can't remember the last time I didn't do anything for 10 straight days. It was very weird. It was a very weird feeling because actually kind of a lot of stuff happened. There was a lot of stuff happened. There was a lot of stuff that happened over the break. I know Jon was on with Brent and Fletch. Shout out to him for filling in as well. But there's a lot of stuff happened. Padres news with the Air Groupner, right? NFL, you had San Diego State beat Gonzaga. The Padres, like, not making any moves. College football playoffs happened yesterday, which were fantastic and amazing.
The Pistons actually won a game.
The Pistons finally won a basketball game. So I'm probably missing something in there as well. But there was a lot of things that happened over the break while I was gone, at least. And I think here in San Diego, the biggest thing that happened, it had to be San Diego State beating Gonzaga. No question about it. It happened on Friday night. I was actually on a plane the entire game. So we're flying home from Philly, and it's really weird because the time change, and I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, am I going to be back in time to watch this game? Am I not going to be back in time to watch this game? Well, luckily, I had internet on the plane. I had to fork over $30 to get it, which is kind of crazy. But at the same time, you got to do what you got to do, right? $30, it's fine. Who cares? So I got the Gonzaga San Diego State game on my phone, and I'm watching it the entire flight. And it was funny because the second we landed, there's about 2 minutes left, right? So there's like 2 minutes left in the game, and we're about to get off the plane, but I'm sitting there watching my phone, like in the corner on this plane while everybody's about to get off. Aaron's like, we got to go. I'm like, I can't leave. The game is on. But it was one of those games that just kind of should remind everybody that, San Diego State basketball is, to me, the most buttoned up, the most prestigious basketball school on the West Coast as of right now. With their win over Gonzaga, dispute that with me. They just made a national championship game. Okay. They just went to Spokane and beat Gonzaga on their home floor in a true road game. Okay. They've beaten Cal. They've beaten Stanford. Recently, they've beaten USC a couple years ago. I think it was 2020 where they beat them. I know they beat Arizona State. How can you dispute that San Diego State basketball isn't the number one brand on the West Coast? Dispute it, because I can't. Because after that game on Friday night against Gonzaga, that to me showed that this school should now be viewed as such. You don't just go to Gonzaga and win and have it be a fluke. Because there's no flukes that happen in Spokane. None. There was actually only one other fluke, and San Diego State became the second in the last decade plus. I mean, Gonzaga was 77-1 there. 77-1. Now they're 77-2. And it was a fantastic game. I think Jaden Ledee had a Jaden Ledee game. Darion Trammell in the first half was, he was special. He was absolutely special. And I thought the biggest moment of that game, for me at least, was a Reese Waters 3 in the second half with about 5.5 minutes left. Zags cut it to 3. And, you're thinking to yourself, here we go, right? They had to lead the entire game. I think they pushed it to about 15 points. And Gonzaga's making a run, cuts it to 3. Then Reese Waters hits, to me, the biggest shot of the game. And it was just
I think that was Miles Bird.
Well, I know. I know
towards the end.
There was 2. There was 2. So Gonzaga was making a run. And I know that Reese Waters hit a 3 with about 5-ish minutes left. I know Miles Bird did hit a huge corner 3 as well. But Gonzaga was also making a run at that point. That's when they were down by 15 and they cut it to 3. And then you had a Reese Waters 3, and they were kind of going a little bit back and forth. No, San Diego State didn't push their lead back to 15, but they had a good lead. And I know Miles Bird hit another 3 in the corner. That was huge as well. But to me, I thought the Reese Waters 3, after almost essentially giving up a 15-point lead, was the biggest shot of the game. And he was actually named the Mountain West Conference Player of the Week, deservedly so. He had a fantastic game. That team on Friday night, I think Dutch would tell you, that's the type of team we want to be. We want to be a team that has firepower off the bench, right? We have our main guys doing things. We have Jay Powell, Jaden Ledee, 20 and 10 every single night. Reese Waters being a scoring threat from whatever on the floor. And then you also have Darion Trammell finally kind of getting in the action there and becoming a threat off the bench. Because that's the one thing, Brent, that this team, I thought, was missing for the first, 13 games, 12 games of the season. Like their bench was pretty thin. There was moments you had Jay Powell come off the bench in a game and whatnot, but you have yet to see that breakout Darion Trammell game this year. And I thought that Darion Trammell definitely had his first breakout game of the year. That was the guy that I saw and everybody saw last year in the tournament versus Alabama, right? Versus Creighton. Like that's the guy, the confidence, the guy that's making threes, making plays, getting big buckets when you need it. Out there playing solid defense. Not the tallest guy on the court, but he's out there making the right plays. And it was a huge thing in this game because of what happened with Lamont Butler. Lamont Butler was in foul trouble the entire night.
I said on Friday, I told John that my prediction of what was going to happen is that we would win, but nationally they would come up with some sort of excuse to not give us any credit for winning.
Well, there's a part of that there.
And that is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
ESPN didn't even wait until halftime and they started laying in excuses for why they were losing. And after the game, this Gonzaga team, they're just a team. They're nothing special like they have been in years past. And, it just goes to show, did we get in the top 25? No. And then Gonzaga dropped 11 spots by losing to San Diego State. So it kind of came true where I said, if we win, instead of getting some respect like we should for beating Gonzaga in Gonzaga, they just made excuses nationally for, this is a down year for Gonzaga. And
look, I get what you're saying. And there was a lot of that on social media about the AP poll and not being back in the top 25. I put out on Twitter, I was like, well, after the game, I was like, well, don't worry. Everybody, aka John, won't have to worry because of course San Diego State will be back in the top 25.
I thought they would too. I thought it'd be a lock.
And the more that I see it, the more I just don't really care. I'm not going to sit here and get too frustrated about the Aztecs not in the top 25 because their metrics are really, really good. They're advanced metrics that matter more than being in the AP top 25. Do you know where San Diego State finished last year before the tournament in the AP top 25? Exactly. Nobody does. Like nobody remembers that. Nobody. And that's the point is it's not about where you finish in the AP poll. Like San Diego State with this team, what I saw on Friday night, I know it's a down year for Gonzaga, but guess what? Nobody wins there. Nobody. You know how I know? Because look at the record for Gonzaga in Spokane. It's 77-1. Well, now it's 77-2. But you get my point. San Diego State, who cares about the AP poll? Who cares about that? Their advanced metrics are some of the best in the country, and they're only getting better. And guess what? If they have a good Mountain West Conference record, because the Mountain West Conference is freaking stacked, guess what? Those metrics, those advanced metrics that matter more to Brian Dutcher and that team than an AP poll, is going to just get better because the competition they're going to play is only going to help their resume. It's not like it's San Diego State and then a bunch of crap in the Mountain West Conference. This is a freaking fantastic conference. Fantastic. And so the more that they play, the more wins they put under their belt against Mountain West Conference elite teams, the better their resume is going to be. So the AP stuff, I get it, right? You want to, if you're an Aztecs fan, you want to see a number attached to the Aztecs, every time they play. And you're kind of wondering to yourself, like, why is FAU in the top 25? They just lost to Bryant. Like, it doesn't make any sense. How is Gonzaga still in the top 25? I know it doesn't make any sense, but I'm telling you, just watch the games. And if you watch the games and you wipe away all the AP crap, San Diego State's a really good team. They're a very, very good team. So I'm not concerned at all about the AP stuff. It's the metrics to me, the Ken Palm, right? It's John's favorite stuff. Ken Palm and advanced metrics and whatever else you want to use to determine, strength of schedule and quad one wins and all that stuff. That to me is more important. But the team that we saw Friday night makes you believe as an Aztecs fan, I think maybe they can make another run. If that's the team that shows up in the tournament this year, that team to me makes a run just because of how balanced they were, from scoring off the bench, from their main guys contributing, and then their defense is obviously a staple of this program. I know giving up 74 points is probably not a Dave Velasquez just celebration to be had, but at the same time, a Gonzaga team at home, 74 points, they're a team that can run up the score a little bit. I know it's a down year for them, but they can get some pretty good games scoring wise there.
Well, and the Aztecs showed some resiliency just in, everyone knows that they don't handle the press well. They haven't handled the press well in, the past 2-3 seasons. So when they went up big and then Gonzaga started to lay on the press and they just started to kind of creep back into it.
Exactly.
I was just like, oh God, here we go again. Here we go again. But unlike previous years where they kind of would let it creep into the back of their head, they just kind of stuck with it and they stuck with it. And, they started making shots again and then they just held on. But yeah, I was getting worried there for a little bit.
Everybody was. I think I told Aaron on the plane because we were watching. She kind of peeked over and was like, "What are you watching?" I was like, "Aztecs." And she's like, "What, they're playing?" And I was like, "I don't." It was like a 15-point lead at the time. She's like, "Oh, they're gonna win." And I was like, This is not a safe lead. This is not a safe lead. 15 points with how much time was left was not a safe lead. And of course, winning by 10 on the road in Gonzaga was. Were you shocked that they won by 10 or not? Because I'm not shocked that they won. I'm a little like, whoa, to see kind of how they asserted their dominance in the second half to a point where you're up 15. And yes, you knew Gonzaga was going to make a run. And then right away, they responded quickly with some big time shots from Reese Waters and a guy that, is playing his first year in a big role in Miles Bird.
I wasn't shocked because it was one of those where, the final score, they won by 9 or 10, but it was closer than that to where, sometimes you'll have games where you're up 10-15 the whole game, and it's never really in doubt. This one, they made their free throws towards the end, and I don't remember who it was that got the tee because he had that dunk at the end, and then he hung
Jay
on the rim. So that made it a little bit closer. But yeah, it wasn't as close. It was closer than what the 9-point final said. So for me, it wasn't that much of a shock. If they would have, when they went up by 15 initially, if it would have stayed like that, because at the time I was like, no way, are they going to actually run them out of their own building? Of course, it's way too early to say that.
You kind of saw it a little bit.
It kind of seemed like it for a second. I was like, hey, that would be our Christmas gift. But
well, it was definitely a Christmas gift to win on the road.
Oh yeah,
at Gonzaga. If you were to tell me, all right, of any, and you might choose BYU just because of the metrics, but if you're looking at the hardest games on their non-conference schedule, I would say it was BYU on the road. Okay. It was, I think you can put Grand Canyon in there just because it was a true road game. And it was a tricky road game because the second that, that game was announced, you're like, okay, that's a little tough one. Even though I think Grand Canyon has some pretty good stats, like losing to Grand Canyon on the road in a true road game, people were at the time were freaking out. I'm like, guys, this is not a horrific loss because Grand Canyon's a really good team. And then Gonzaga. Of those 3 games, Brent, I think a lot of people would have picked, if you could only win one of those games, I think a lot of people would have chose Gonzaga. Maybe everybody would have chose Gonzaga.
Well, that was mine because I've always said since I got out here that the unfair treatment that the Zags get compared to the Aztecs, just with, look, Gonzaga's conference isn't any better than the Mountain West. I think it's worse than the Mountain West, but yet, if it's ESPN or Fox or any of them, they'll treat Gonzaga's conference like they play in the ACC or something, and it's like, come on, it's like them and St. Mary's most years, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But they won't give any credit to the Aztecs. They'll hold the Mountain West against them. So I had this one circled as soon as they pretty much announced it, because like I said on Friday, that if they want respect, especially in considered among the other mid majors like Gonzaga, then they're going to have to go take it, because otherwise, nationally, they're not going to get it.
Yeah. So that to me, Gonzaga was the game that I circled too, as all right. That to me, if they win that game, man, you feel pretty good about yourself if you're an Aztec fan and if you're Brian Dutcher.
Well, and there's a thing too about, remember Mark Few blew us off at Mountain West Media Days.
Dude, I thought about that. Brent, you're absolutely right. Thank you for reminding me. I was watching the game and they panned to Mark Few, and my first thought was, that smug look on your face.
That's what you get for blowing off the Jon and Jim show.
So behind the scenes here, when we were at Mountain West Conference Media Day in Las Vegas for basketball, it was also the WCC Media Day as well.
They're hyping up the Aztec Gonzaga game matchup, and
right. And so you had Mark Few there, and we were scheduled to talk to Mark Few, and we talked to his handler or the PR person, I forget who it was, and he completely blew us off. Like completely blew us off. We had it scheduled, we had everything ready to go, and then last minute, he's like, "Yeah, no, he doesn't want to come on." And
yet he walked by you.
He walked right by us. He walked right by us to go to do a TV thing. And he had time. I saw him. He wasn't doing anything. And he completely blew us off. So that's what you get, Mark Few. That's what you get, Gonzaga, for blowing off the Jon and Jim show. A loser. A loser. Yeah. So Mark Few blowing us off. Pause. And and San Diego State getting the win over Gonzaga. That was, to me, the biggest story while I was gone here in San Diego.
One you forgot too. Did you see Rich shaved his head?
Okay. Yeah, I did. That to me was just like, what? Huh? Like, what are we doing here? Shaving. First of all, I saw him. He dyed his hair.
That's why he shaved it. Because apparently his barber dyed his hair, and Rich really liked it, so he wanted him to do that to his hair. Only when he did it, it didn't turn out as Rich wanted it to.
Mm.
So he just shaved his head.
Okay. Yeah. I'll file that under the category of the WTF moments of while I was gone. I don't think that was a huge sports story in this town, unfortunately, Brent, but I do.
It was actually, it's pretty big news.
Pretty big news.
It's pretty big news for like that almost overshadowed the Holiday Bowl until.
Oh yeah, the Holiday Bowl happened while I was gone as well.
You know, what's his name threw those 6 touchdown passes.
It's like the greatest.
Not Caleb Williams.
Yeah, is Caleb Williams a system quarterback? Discuss.
Hey. That's why I said the whole time I was here running the board, I told John and Rich, I was like, I feel so much better about my assessment of Caleb Williams from a month ago.
Hey man, well Bears fans get what they want, then you won't have to worry about Caleb Williams apparently at all. Even though I would be completely shocked if Caleb Williams is not a Chicago Bear next season. All right, we have plenty to get to today. It's a jam-packed show. San Diego State obviously beating Gonzaga. We have Mark Ziegler coming up today at 5 p.m. We have great giveaways today, by the way. Tomorrow, San Diego State take on Fresno State to open up conference play at Viejas Arena. We have not one, but we have two pairs of Aztec tickets for tomorrow night's game. Don't call right now. But we have 2 pairs of Aztec tickets to tomorrow night's game versus Fresno State. We'll give those away later in the show. Yes, Brent?
There's more.
Oh, I know there's more. We have a pair of tickets to see Chicago and Earth, Wind, and Fire at the North Island Credit Union Amphitheater on August 31st. We'll probably give those away, maybe Trainwreck Radio. We figure that out, do that a little bit later in the show, but we have a great giveaway list today. We also have Mark Ziegler on the show. We have the wrap coming up, but coming up next, it's January 2nd. Now, I said I would not get like too concerned with lack of Padres moves because there's still time. I may be changing my tune on that one. We'll talk about Padres' lack of moves coming up next. All right, I said I would not worry about lack of Padres moves until spring training starts. I may be changing my tune. We'll talk about lack of moves coming up next. All right, this update is brought to you by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. We'll start with the Aztecs. They beat Gonzaga on Friday night, 84-74. That ended their non-conference schedule. They start conference play tomorrow night versus Fresno State at Viejas Arena. 6:30 is when our pregame coverage starts right here on San Diego Sports 760. In the college football playoffs yesterday, great games as Washington beat Texas 37-31. And Michigan took down Alabama 27-20 in overtime in the Rose Bowl. Washington, Michigan, national championship game on Monday night. Currently, right now, Michigan is a 4-point favorite. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with Code Sports because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Agent eligibility restrictions do apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details today. All right, Jon and Jim on a Tuesday. Happy New Year to everybody out there. Jon will be back with us on Thursday. So if you're wondering where Jon is, don't worry. He's okay. But sending our best wishes to Jon, and he'll be back with us later in the week.
He's stalking the AP voters.
Yeah.
He's going to find you.
He was, the second that AP poll came out, man, he was very quick to tweet about it. Very quick to tweet about it. I knew he was going to do it. It was just like giving candy to a baby. Like, oh, San Diego State's not in the top 25. There you go, Jon. That's all you need. But and we'll talk more about that with Mark Ziegler coming up today at 5 p.m. We'll talk about the Aztecs and how they performed in non-conference, their win over Gonzaga, and how they prepare for a very good, very, very good Mountain West Conference schedule starting tomorrow night at Viejas Arena. But the new year was yesterday. It didn't really feel like much of a New Year. I don't know, Brent. Did it feel like anything to you? Did the New Year's feel like anything big to you? Or
No.
I was borderline asleep at 11:30 on Sunday night. I felt like a real old man then.
I don't even remember if I made it up till midnight. If I did, it was close. But no, we just sat around and watched TV, and yesterday watched football.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, a lot of football.
watched football. I watched part of the Bucks game, and pretty much just sat around, took some walks, and that was about it.
Yeah, it was a lot of football for me. It was a lot of college football, a lot of NFL.
You know, any New Year's Day where Alabama loses is always a good day in my books. So.
Oh yeah, great day. But yesterday, I'm not expecting any Padres news. I'm not expecting anything to happen of consequence. I'm not expecting really a signing of anything. But then Dennis Lin puts out an article, January 1st. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. The title of the article is Examining the Padres Roster, Outfield Holds, Lefty Needs, and Infield Trade Questions. So I start reading. And I know I said that because we had this conversation a couple weeks ago. It feels like a month ago. It feels like forever ago. When you're out for 10 days, you're like, you lose track of time. You don't know what, like, that was only 11 days ago. But anyway, I know we talked about this a little bit ago about how I'm not really that worried yet with the lack of Padres moves because they're not going to spring training, which is now in less than a month and a half, because their spring training starts earlier because they have to play in Korea coming up here in just a couple months. I'm not worried that much. Like, it is a little concerning, but I'm not like DEFCON 1, fire alarms ringing, like, what the hell is going on? But then I read this article from Dennis, and it kind of paints the picture of like, man, they have a lot of moves. Man, they have a lot of work to do. Like, a lot of work to do. I mean, at this current moment in time, on January 2nd, 2024, they have 6 roster spots to fill. 6. That's not like 1 or 2. 6. That's an entire infield, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's more than that.
If you count the pitcher and the catcher.
4, 5. Yeah, it's true. An entire infield. That is an entire infield, including the pitcher and the catcher. 6. So this is not like their one move and then they're done, and then they'll start determining like what guys could possibly make a push in spring training to make the opening day roster, or, you know, here's some young guys that could perform. They have 6 roster spots to fill. And as it currently stands right now, and Darren mentioned it, and like, I think about it too. I know there was reports of them hiring a hitting coach because we talked about it. But other than that, there's been nothing, like literally nothing from this team as far as coaching staff goes, as far as filling up these roster spots go. And I know this is not just a Padres thing. It's a baseball thing. Like, I saw the other day, I forget where I saw it, but of the top like 100 free agents or the top 50 free agents in baseball, only like 18 or 20 have signed. I mean, that's a baseball problem. That's an ownership problem. That's a problem with these teams not wanting to go out and spend money, which I hate because we're in 2024 and the Cy Young Award winner, the best closer on the market, those guys aren't signed. Now, I kind of understand it because there are a lot of question marks with those 2 players. But the dude just won the Cy Young, and he's not signed to a team yet. I think in years past, if a guy won a Cy Young and he's a free agent, he's going off the board pretty quickly.
I think some of that was they're waiting on the Yamamoto deal and some of that to kind of dictate what the market's going to be.
Yeah, but don't you think that, and I'm not saying Yamamoto's a bad pitcher. I mean, shoot, we haven't even seen him throw a pitch in the big leagues at all yet. But what I'm saying is, if you're waiting on a guy who has never thrown a pitch in the big leagues over a guy that just won the Cy Young. And I have my issues with Blake Snell. Don't get me wrong. But that to me just doesn't compute.
I mean from Snell's camp, they're going to be like, okay, no, we're just going to wait, and whatever he gets, then that's going to get us more money. If we just wait, you'll get more money out of it. In terms of the Padres, I'm not worried yet, because with their financial situation the way it is, it's not like they're going to be in contention to pick up any of these top 10 sought after free agents anyways. The guys we're going to have to sign are going to be not bottom level guys, but guys that are just kind of mid-tier guys that we're going to be able to afford to fill out the roster, aka guys that don't have 28 other teams lined up at their front door to sign them. So there's not as much urgency to go out and sign that utility left fielder as there is to some other team that might want to sign Blake Snell. So they're in a position where they have more time to do what they need to do.
And I get it. They were not going to re-sign Blake Snell. They were not going to re-sign Josh Hader. They were not going to go sign Shohei Ohtani, and they were not going to go sign Yamamoto. I understand that.
Really? I thought they were going to do all of those things.
Well, at this time last year, that's what everybody thought. Like, oh, dude, next offseason, they're going to sign Yamamoto. They're going to sign Ohtani. They're going to re-sign Juan Soto. They're going to do all this stuff. And they didn't do any of it. Yuki Matsui, come on down. Actually like Yuki Matsui.
Oh, here. See, we forgot about him. They did do something.
They did something. I actually like Yuki Matsui.
And a hitting coach. They're on a roll, man.
Well, reportedly, hitting coach. Reportedly. Still not officially announced yet.
Yuki was reported for like a week and a half until it was official.
That's true. But now Yuki's official, so we can actually, talk about it. But, I mean, it's not just like this Padres team needs a outfielder, a starter, a reliever, a DH, a bench piece. They need all of that. Like, it would be one thing if on January 2nd, they just needed one of those things. But when you need all of them, that I understand why people are getting a little anxious and a little nervous. Me too. The more time goes past without anything happening, I am also getting nervous and anxious. And I'm starting to go on the side of, what the hell is going on? And when are you going to start making moves? Instead of they have plenty of time crowd, which admittedly, a couple of weeks ago, I was kind of on that wagon. But, now we're on January 2nd here, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, all right, after reading Dennis's piece about kind of where the roster breaks down and seeing him say things like, well, Jackson Merrill could be an outfielder. I'm like, what are we doing here? Another player in their system who is probably going to be brought up too soon and put in a position they never played before because they don't have any other option. Like, these worry me. These things definitely worry me. And I'm reading the roster. They have one legitimate outfielder, Brent. They have no DH. Okay. I would say they need a left-handed starter. Their entire rotation is all right-handed right now. Unless you think Jake Room could be anything for you. They have a bullpen with a lot of question marks. I'm sorry. There's a lot of question marks in that bullpen right now. You're 100% confident that Robert Suarez is going to be a lockdown closer for this team? Because I'm not. After last year, are we 100% confident that Yuki Matsui is going to translate well to the major leagues? I'm not 100% confident on that. I hope it happens, but I'm not 100% confident. They have two left-handers in their bullpen right now. Two. Are you confident that the move that they made for Juan Soto, getting these pitchers back, that all of those guys are going to contribute at the big league level? I'm not fully on board with that. There's a lot of hope here. There's a lot of, I hope this happens. There's a lot of, I hope Michael King can be a legitimate starter and put up the same numbers as Michael Wacha. Like, if you told me right now, Michael King puts up the same numbers as Michael Wacha, that's very good. But are you 100% confident that he's going to do that? I'm not. I got to go see it first. So, look, I get it. January 2nd, we're getting closer here. Once you hit the new year, you're like, oh my God, spring training's in about a month here, month and a half, a little less than that. And they have 6 roster spots to fill. They have 1 outfielder. They have no lefty power in their lineup. They have no left-handed starting pitcher, no bench help, no DH.
I'm just over here laughing, thinking about all the positions that we need. It just reminded me of the beginning of Major League when like they have that shot of all the fans like looking through the paper and like, who the hell are these guys?
Who is this guy? Well,
that's what half the team's going to be this spring training. It's like, who the hell's that guy?
Who the hell is that guy? Well, look, I would be shocked if the next couple of weeks, Brent, we don't get some type of moves because you have to start getting guys ready to go.
You know, free agency in all sports is kind of like a snowball thing to where once, you know, if Snell goes on Friday, then somebody else will go and then they'll all
we thought that with Ohtani and Yamamoto and nothing.
Yeah, but
really
that's the
happened.
holidays though. Nobody's going to get signed over.
They stopped Preller before.
Well, Preller ain't going to do anything.
Well,
the rest of the baseball world,
Preller's still, you know, probably calling people on Christmas morning like, hey, do you want to talk about this guy? Anyway, so we'll see what happens there. But another thing that I missed over the 10 days that I was gone was some interesting comments by the Padres CEO, Eric Grupner, told to the UT. We'll talk about those comments coming up next.
Thanks for the supers chat, Steve. Appreciate it, man. Steve says, I told you guys it's a rebuilding year, 90 to 100 losses. I don't think it's a rebuilding year, Steve. I really don't. I think it's just like a reality check type of year. That this team is not going to be a team that spends $250 million on their payroll. And to me, a rebuilding year would be you don't have Manny Machado, you don't have Fernando Tatis Jr. or Manny or Joe or you or Kim. You can't have those players on this team and call it a rebuilding year. I'm sorry, you just can't. Now, if they all get injured, then yeah, you're looking at probably 90 losses. But I just don't see it as a rebuilding year. I don't. But we'll see. Thanks for the super chat, Steve. Appreciate it, man. If you guys want to send in supers, we'll get to them all at the break. And make sure you hit the like button, subscribe on this video, or subscribe to our channel, excuse me, and hit the like button. And we'll be back after this.
All right, coming up next, we have some interesting details with the Yuki Matsui deal. Also, Eric Grupner had some interesting comments while I was gone. We'll get into those coming up next. All right, back on Jon and Jim on a Tuesday. Happy New Year to everybody out there. January 2nd, 2024.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's weird. I was talking to Aaron last night. I'm like, I'm getting married this year. Like, that's just, it's just weird. Like,
Did she go, I am too?
That she did. Yeah. Well, yes, Brent, we did say we're getting married this year. I was just referring to talking about myself in this moment of, oh, yes, I'm getting married this year. We are getting married this year. So, yeah, I'm going to have a wife soon. How you doing? Anyway, yeah, 2024. Happy New Year, everybody out there. Jon, he'll be back with us on Thursday. So in the meantime, you got me for the next couple days here. San Diego State basketball tomorrow night at Viejas Arena, taking on Fresno State, opening up conference play. So we've been talking about things that happened while I was gone, because I was gone all last week. But 10 days off for me. And one of the big things that also happened that I didn't have a chance to talk about was Eric Grupner, Padres CEO, talked to the UT about the Holiday Bowl. Rightfully so. It's at Petco Park. I think it's an amazing event there. I watched a little bit of it on the East Coast, except that's a start. Dude, I'll tell you what. The start times of things on the East Coast, and you know this, Brent. Dude, it's ridiculous. I mean, I had to watch that horrific Niner game, the Christmas massacre.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, by the time the thing was over, and yes, I did watch the whole thing. I didn't stop watching it. It was like 11:30, like it was like past midnight. I'm like, dude, what the hell? So the Holiday Bowl started around 9 o'clock, I think it was. on the East Coast. And I'm like, dude, this is super late. But I tuned in for a little bit, and it looked fantastic. I thought that Petco Park looked beautiful. I thought the field compared to last year's field was way better. They probably figured out the problem there. But Eric Grupner, that's his baby. Like Petco Park, putting events on there, having concerts, out, the new Gallagher Square that they're building out there. Like that's his baby. Like that is what he takes the most pride in, I think, and obviously the stuff that he's going to talk about publicly the most. But then when he started talking to UT, there were some interesting quotes in the UT from Eric Grupner. And look, I didn't have like a visceral like reaction to it, like maybe some others did. I kind of honestly thought it was like funny. Like, I don't think it was the right thing to say, because when you're essentially saying like, hey, if you were asleep for the last 3 years, and you just woke up, like you should just be grateful for what you have, type of thing. Like that was what I got out of the message, even though I don't know if that's what he was trying to fully convey. And here's exactly what he said. I understand fans might focus on the departure of Soto and free agents we might not sign this year, but we feel like we have a great core group of players. If a fan fell asleep 3 years ago and woke up to see the caliber of players we have under long-term contracts, they would be pretty surprised, even if it might seem lower than some fans expect. It still is significantly higher than it has historically been. The part of the whole quote that makes you go like, I don't know if you should have said that, was hey, if you've been sleeping for 3 years or if you're in a coma and you just woke up, you should be happy about what this Padres team has. Kind of, I don't know, dismissing what's happened the last couple years, which to me is never a good idea, to just like dismiss and try to wipe away issues or problems. Like just own up to issues, own up to problems, own up to mistakes, and just go forward. Like, is that so hard to do, to say, hey, look, the last couple years we expected more, we didn't get it, that sucked. We're entering a new time of Padres baseball. We feel like we have a really good baseball team. We're making different moves than we have in the past. And like, we're going forward with the guys we have, instead of kind of going along the lines of just be grateful. Like, to me, it didn't create a visceral reaction, but it also didn't make me say, whatever. I was more on the side of like, maybe you should have said it a little differently than that. I understand where you're probably coming from, but I also think a lot of fans might have interpreted that, and they did, as, hey, just be grateful. Like, to tell a fan just to be grateful, like, never is a great thing to do. So, again, is it the end of the world of what he said? Should we like eviscerate Eric Grupner for that? No. But I am, for where this Padres team is going now, like for the foreseeable future, with a significantly lesser payroll than they had last season, not going out and signing the big time free agents like they have in the past, having to cut costs wherever they can, right? Focusing on the farm system that hopefully, knock on wood, one day pans out, right? Hoping that a guy like Fernando Tatis Jr., by the way, happy birthday, Fernando Tatis Jr., only 25. Wild.
Oh, speaking of that, happy birthday to you.
We'll get into that. I don't understand what just happened on Facebook, but very weird.
So Facebook's wrong then.
Very weird.
Oh, okay.
Very weird. Anyway, back to Eric Grupner and the Padres. It's not it's not something to go crazy over to anything. It's just, it's one of those quotes that's going to probably live or be with Eric Grupner for a little while, that I don't know if he'll like, because a lot of stuff now will be the joke of, hey, if you just were asleep the last 3 years, or, just if you're, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for what this Padres team has. Because when you say just be grateful, then you're telling the fan base, don't be critical, don't criticize, don't be upset, just be happy-go-lucky, pom-pom waving fans that, never look deeper into things and get upset about things, which to me, there's plenty of places you can listen to pom-pom waving people talk about this team, but we're not going to do that. And I don't think fans should do that. They have a right to be upset if things don't go well. That's what happened this past year. All right, coming up next, we have a lot of good giveaways to give away. Make sure you stay tuned. We have a couple pair of Aztec tickets to give away. We also have, let me pull this up here. We also have a pair of tickets to see Chicago and Earth, Wind, and Fire at the North Island Credit Union Amphitheater on August 31st. Also, Mark Ziegler will join us later in the show. All that coming up next on Jon and Jim. All right, this update is brought to you by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. Aztecs coming off their win against Gonzaga last Friday night. We'll start conference play tomorrow at Viejas Arena versus Fresno State. 6:30 is when our pregame coverage starts right here on San Diego Sports 760. College football playoff semifinals yesterday and last night. Washington beat Texas 37-31, and Michigan took down Alabama in the Rose Bowl 27-20 in overtime. The national championship game next Monday night will be Washington and Michigan. Michigan is currently a 4-point favorite. Here's what's check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code SPORTS, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions do apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details today. Jon and Jim on a Tuesday. Happy New Year to everybody out there. Almost had a Ron Burgundy moment there, Brent. I just read was on the screen. Even that was almost bad, but we recovered. Anyway, back with you here on Jon and Jim. Couple days without Jon. Jon will be back with us on Thursday. Aztec basketball tomorrow night at Viejas Arena. We have a couple pair of tickets to give away. Make sure you're listening this hour. We'll give away one pair of tickets this hour to tomorrow night's game versus Fresno State. The Aztecs start their conference play. And we haven't talked about it at all this show, but yesterday, Brent, the college football playoffs, the final year of the 14 playoff, I thought could not have been any better.
Oh, yeah. They finally got it right. Anybody still complaining about Florida State not being in the college football playoff, I think you're kind of validated right now. Just because, look, do I think Florida State should have gotten a chance? Yeah, probably. But was I one of those people that was like so upset about it? No, I wasn't, because I knew that, I mean, you put Alabama versus Michigan, Harbaugh versus Saban. That to me is, I've not seen the numbers on that game yet at all, but that had to have been one of the most watched college football games ever. It had to have been. And so to me, it absolutely delivered, with the Rose Bowl being the Rose Bowl. I mean, to me, the Rose Bowl is my favorite college bowl game every year. Just the scenery, the pageantry, the teams that are usually in it, just everything about the Rose Bowl to me is perfect. Like, nothing about that should change. To me, honestly, every single year, they should have the national championship game, or at least a semifinal game at the Rose Bowl every year. Now, I know it's not going to happen because they rotate, but it feels different, right, Brent? Doesn't it just feel different watching that game? Like, I know Washington and Texas, like, they played in an NFL stadium. They played at a place they've had the Sugar Bowl a lot. You know, they've had national championship games there. They have Super Bowls there. But to me, there's something just different about the Rose Bowl. For me, it's just different because it's outside. So many of the bowl games nowadays, you know, like the Sugar Bowl and stuff, where they're in domes. And I'd rather, you know, I'm not one of these old guys that's like, oh, football should be in the elements. But, you know, I'd rather watch a game being played on a, you know, nice, you know, night, opposed to just, oh, hey, here we are in the dome, air conditioned and whatever, no elements whatsoever. So.
I just love the view of it all. It's night, it's daytime, and then the second half you get the sunset, and just, to me, the field always looks perfect, right? Like, it just, the stands, how it is. To me, the Rose Bowl was perfect, and I thought the game yesterday absolutely lived up to the hype. I was glued to it. I couldn't get my eyes off the game, and I was thinking to myself, like, oh my God, Harbaugh's going to blow it again. Harbaugh has a reputation. Trust me, I know, he used to be the 49ers head coach, of not coming through in the big game and then making his way to Michigan. You know, a couple years there, he couldn't get over that Ohio State hump. And then once he finally did get over that Ohio State hump, he could not get over the bowl game hump, and then the college football semifinal. Like, you know, the year that they took on Georgia, like, just it was mismatched. And then last year, the failure against TCU in a game they should have won. I mean, let's be real here. Like, they should have beat TCU, but not winning that game, like Harbaugh, getting to the Super Bowl and not winning the Super Bowl, like getting to the NFC title game a couple times, like, it felt like Harbaugh was still going to not get over that hump. And then the final drive by Michigan to go down and tie the game. Whew, man, I did still think Alabama was going to win it, but just to get that to overtime and for Michigan to come out on top, to me, did everything for Jim Harbaugh. If Nick Saban won that game, that does nothing. That game does nothing for Saban's legacy. Literally nothing. Right? He's won 7 national titles. Okay, he's made every single college football playoff. This was his by far worst Alabama team that he's ever had in the championship iteration that he's had. If he won that game, nobody's saying this. Oh, this elevated Nick Saban's legacy. No, Saban's legacy is set as probably the best college football head coach in the history of the sport. There's no debating it. When you win 7 national titles, it's kind of hard to debate that. But for Jim Harbaugh, that was a legacy game for him. Now, you got to go win the national title on Monday night for it to be fully cemented. But we talked, remember this past year, all the talk with San Diego State going into the tournament was, can Dutch and his team get over that hump? Can they win a tournament game? Can they win a game in March Madness? Right? And their first game, they looked pretty tense. It was one of those games that could have gone either way. Remember, it was as soon as they won that game was one of the first things that all those kids, all the players and Coach Dutch said is, well, we have, kind of not like the monkeys off our back, but we can all breathe a sigh of relief and we can all, okay, got that out of the way. I feel like that's kind of what Michigan is doing here and dealing with is, okay, we got that win. Now going into the championship game, there's still pressure on them, no doubt about it, because they're favored in the game. But I do feel like that pressure that they felt yesterday, because there were so many mistakes. First play of the game, JJ McCarthy, almost throws an interception.
Their punt at the end of the regulation.
Their special teams was atrocious yesterday. Just god awful. Some of the dumbest things you see. The muff punts, the missed field goals. Every time Jim Harbaugh gets into a big game, his special teams always somehow reverts to just the worst special teams play you could possibly imagine. And so to me, for Michigan, I think Washington's going to be a very tough test because Michael Penix is the best player in that game, I think. Quarterback wise, they have a best quarterback by a mile. People saying JJ McCarthy is a first-round draft pick. I don't know what you're talking about. I just don't. To me, he's
he might be. Sam Darnold was a first-round draft pick too. What does that say?
To me, Michael Penix compared to JJ McCarthy, not even comparable at all. But for Michigan to get that win and say what you want, you can call them cheaters, blah, blah, blah. Dude, the cheating scandal is one of the dumbest cheating scandals ever. The dumbest cheating scandal of all time. And to go out there and beat Penn State after the cheating scandal, then beat Ohio State, then beat Alabama. It's pretty how we don't talk about the Astros really much anymore because guess what? They went out and they won a World Series after they got, the cheating stuff and they went out and made 8 straight ALCSs or whatever it was. We don't talk about them anymore because they went out there and they backed it up. If it was a one and done for Houston, then we would talk about it all the time. Same thing with Michigan. If they ended up folding and not winning, people would be like, oh, well, guess what? They couldn't cheat, so they can't win. Now it feels like that's kind of in the past, and we're set up for potentially an all-time, national championship game on Monday night.
Then all those rumors that Michigan is about to make Harbaugh the highest paid coach in college football.
I would.
Well, if he wins the national title, he's probably going to get another 0 added on his check, I would think. But
I know that Adam Schefter reported that he hired Don Yee, which is the agent for Tom Brady, to be his agent coming up here, and that would signal potentially the move to the NFL. But I mean, Harbaugh going to this doesn't make sense. Harbaugh and the Chargers. I mean, you have the most incompetent loser owner of all time paired with a guy that only elevates every single program he's with, but he's also paired with an idiot idiot owner. Like
if he goes there though, he's allegedly rumored to be, going to like 3 different teams because the Bears are allegedly going to hire him too.
Would you take him right now?
Yes. I wanted him back before he went back to Michigan, honestly.
Yeah, and I don't know who the owner is of the Bears, but
It's Virginia McCaskey, and she's equally as awful as the Spanos is. She just didn't move the team to Ellsberg or something.
True. I don't really know much about that. I just know what Spanos is, and I know Spanos is cheap.
They're both very incompetent. She is also very cheap.
Yeah, so we'll see. But for Jim Harbaugh to get that win over Alabama, you can kind of put all the stuff. Now he has to win the national title. I get that. He has to do it to cement it. But he just beat Nick Saban. And say what you want about that Alabama team. That, to me, felt like the monkey's off the back for college football, at least. And now Michigan's going to go out and play pretty free and easy Monday night versus Washington. Still going to be a tough game. I don't think Michigan's going to go out and blow them out.
I don't know if they answered this in post game, but was that last play? Do you think it was supposed to be a draw, or just because of the low snap, he didn't have any other choice, so he just tried to take off?
No, it was supposed to be a draw.
Okay,
it was a draw play. They did not.
Do you like that call in that situation?
Horrible call. Horrible play design. I don't mind him running it,
but you need an option to throw it. You can't just do a straight up draw of the middle.
I look, he's their best player on offense. Okay. And to me, if the ball's in his hands, I'm okay with it. I just thought the design was horrible. Like a QB power. Like what? It didn't make any sense. If they did they should have had some type of like
I was almost
motion and he goes out to the right or the left. Like you can't run through the tackles against a team that's been dominating you up front all day long.
Well, see, I almost thought that they were going to try and remember the old Tebow play where he'd snap it and then act like he's going to go do the draw and then he'd just kind of float it over the top. Yeah, I thought that was what they were going to do, but since the snap was so low, he didn't have time to do anything, so he just had to react and they lost.
Yeah, I just think that the right teams won. Like I don't think Texas, the way that they played all year long, should have won that game, even though we'll get to that in a second. And I don't think Alabama should have won that game. Like I just Michigan dominated them the entire game up front. Alabama is just. I mean, when you are coached by Nick Saban, they tried so hard to give that game away. They tried everything they possibly could. And I'm screaming at the TV, like, just take a knee. And now potentially they lost their star running back. I don't know the injury. I don't know if it's good or bad. But Washington tried their hardest to give that game away yesterday. They really did. And it made for an exciting finish. It made for a finish that should have not been that close. I think Steve Sarkisian is kind of a fraud. Like I don't see it at Texas. They're not really like this powerhouse team the last couple of years with him there. They're more of a like 7-8 win team that just had a really good year because the Big 12 sucks. And some of the play calls down the stretch, like, what, bro, you're running a pass in the flat with 15 seconds left, 1st and goal. So the right teams won. I think Michael Penix is a budding star. I would be shocked if he doesn't have, if he has a good national championship game, I'd be shocked if he doesn't get drafted top 10 next year or this upcoming year in the NFL draft. Like he just looks the part. He looks like a guy who, if you're drafting if you want to draft a quarterback, you feel pretty good if you had Michael Penix Jr. That's just, to me, it stood out on TV. Like, dude, this guy's dropping dimes in the bucket all over the field. He can run. He can throw the deep ball. He has the respect of all his teammates. The last 2 years in college football have been like literally as good as Patrick Mahomes. They showed a stat the other night. He had some of the best stats in college football in a 2-year span since Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. Now, I know Texas Tech threw a lot, but still, I mean, doing that all for Washington, and they just don't lose. They're just a team that does not lose. And setting up for Monday night, yeah, it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait. I was glued to the TV yesterday. All the bowl games have really been, I mean, let's just be real here, they've been crap. Like, name me one bowl game that's been a can't take your eyes off bowl game besides the college football playoffs. None. The Cheez-It Bowl, the Pop-Tart Bowl,
dude. The Pop-Tart Bowl was awesome.
Was awesome.
Did you see them eat the Pop-Tart guy?
Yes, I did. I was on a train to New York, and I was looking at my phone, and I saw the Pop-Tart being eaten, and I was like, "This is the greatest thing that's ever happened."
Yeah, and it worked. John was so motivated, he went and bought Jones his first Pop-Tart.
He bought Jones a Pop-Tart?
Yeah, all because of the product placement in the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Was it like a knockoff vegan Pop-Tart?
No, he actually got him a legit one. He got him a s'mores one.
Like a real sugary,
yeah.
like bad for you, but it tastes amazing Pop-Tart?
Yeah, got him a legit Pop-Tart.
Well,
because I said, can you imagine Jones sitting next to you and going, "Look, Daddy, it's the Pop-Tart guy."
He's
and then
getting eaten
as he lowers himself to cook himself into the toaster. And then I said, when they started ripping his, eating him, it looked like something out of Day of the Dead.
Dude,
it was ripping his guts out.
It was awesome to see. So the college football playoffs
They dumped mayo on people's heads and
eggnog
and
like those things are fun and cool. But as far as the games go,
that's almost, I get more excited about all this gimmicky crap now about, what are they going to dump on the coach's head at the end of the game?
The gimmicky stuff is amazing. I love it. I can't get enough of the gimmicky stuff, but the actual games, I don't really care. It doesn't, whatever. It's almost like background to me. And for the degenerates out there, definitely gambling wise, college bowl games are everything. I get that. I'm not a degenerate gambler. I'm not a guy that gambles too much, so I'm not really into that. But I understand how bowl season is for the gamblers out there.
Well, you know what? The championship game on Monday. This is only going to be the second time in the history of the college football playoff. No SEC teams.
Wow. Well, this is now a future Big Ten matchup, by the way.
The inaugural one was Ohio State, Oregon. And since then, there has been at least one SEC school in the championship game every year.
Wow. Well, now you're getting a Big Ten matchup. and it's going to be cool next year because you're going to get a rematch between Michigan and Washington because of stupid college football realignment and Washington being in the Big Ten now. So it will be definitely a rematch of the college football national championship game between Michigan and Washington. And as of right now, Michigan being a 4-point favorite. If I were a betting man, which I'm not, but if I were, I would take Washington. I think to me, a Washington team that, has the better quarterback by a mile. I think they have better receivers. I think their offense can put up some points. Defensively,
Michigan's front line is stacked.
That is the only problem. Is the Michigan defensive line it's ridiculous. There's a reason why. I mean, yesterday's game against Alabama, they were just pushing everybody around. 5 sacks in the first half. Just Milroe could not get a pass off. It just could not get a pass off at all. That's the one difference in the game is if the Michigan defensive line does what they did versus Alabama versus Washington, then yeah, it's probably a different story. But having the best quarterback in the game by a mile, best receivers, and a damn good head coach, I would not be surprised if Washington does not. I'd be surprised if this is a blowout Michigan way on Monday night. I think Washington's going to be in it. I think they're going to have a chance to win it. And hopefully it's a good game. Because if we get anything like we did those 2 games yesterday, that's going to be up there as far as the most viewed college football national championship games ever. It's fantastic stuff. Just absolutely fantastic stuff. All right, coming up next, have the wrap. Also, you want to do this right now, Brent? Let's do it right now. because we have two pairs.
Tickets, we can do that.
We have two pairs of tickets to give away for the Aztecs game tomorrow night versus Fresno State. Call right now, 877-767-4760. Again, 877-767-4760. Caller number, let's do 9. Caller number 9 right now wins a pair of tickets to see the Aztecs take on Fresno State tomorrow night at Viejas Arena. Again, that new number, 877-767-4760. Caller number 9 right now. Coming up next, the wrap. All right, coming up next, will Jackson Merrill really be starting in the outfield for the Padres next year? We'll talk about that coming up next. All right, this update is brought to you by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. Aztecs coming off their huge win versus Gonzaga Friday night will start conference play tomorrow night at Viejas Arena versus Fresno State. 6:30 is when our pregame coverage starts right here on San Diego Sports 760. The college football playoff semifinals last night and yesterday afternoon. Michigan, they beat Alabama 27-20. And Washington took down Texas 37-31. The national championship game will be Monday night in Houston. Washington versus Michigan. Right now, Michigan is a 4-point favorite. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code SPORTS because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is all yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions do apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details today. So we have the numbers on the college football playoffs, and they're massive. I was talking about how probably the Alabama-Michigan game was the most watched college football game, or maybe college football playoff ever. Yeah, it was. It peaked at 32.8 million viewers, the best of any college football playoff semifinal ever. Now, the national championship game is different. But still, almost 33 million people watched Alabama, Michigan. When I'm sure it peaked mid fourth quarter as Michigan's trailing and then Michigan's making that final drive with about 4 minutes left.
Well, they have two of the biggest fan bases in all of college football too. One of the best shots was I don't know what point of the game it was, but they had like it must have been from the blimp or one of the flyovers.
Dude, I love the views.
But they had like a top-down shot, and the Rose Bowl was split from the top down because the one half was all maize and yellow, and then the other half was all whatever shade of red.
Crimson Tide.
Yeah, whatever crimson, I guess. Duh.
Yeah.
Whatever shade of red Alabama has. So it was just kind of neat just to see the top-down view of the Rose Bowl and just see it be about 55% Michigan and then about 45 Alabama, but it was just split perfectly down the middle. There's no splotches of yellow in any of the red, and there's no red in any of the yellow. It was pretty cool.
And these are massive numbers. I mean, the Rose Bowl totaled 27.2 million viewers.
I'm curious, what did the Texas game do?
They did,
because that was later. I did see some people were complaining about the later start times for
East Coast.
Games.
It's East Coast. But 18.4 million. It was the fourth most watched Sugar Bowl since 2004. The third best non-NFL sporting event since the start of 2023.
04, that would have been the Michael Vick one, right?
And then it peaked at 24.5 million viewers. So a pretty good day for college football. It just tells you football is king. College and NFL. No question about it.
Well, yeah, just look at did you see the ratings comparison for the Christmas Day NBA versus the
It wasn't even a comparison.
Yeah, I know. Like the best game for the NBA ratings was the Lakers game, and that was only half of what the worst NFL rated game was.
And I love the NBA.
Oh, so do I. I watched NBA that day.
I love NBA. I love NFL, college football, especially baseball. I'm in it all. It just sucks how it doesn't suck, but it just, if you're any of the other sports, you're kind of sitting there what the hell happened? Because they get dominated by the NFL.
I know. Well, that's one of those things we always say here, do better then.
Exactly. Do better.
There's reasons, obviously, just the sport in general, people just like football more than the other ones, but there's reasons outside of the game why the NFL succeeds so much, whether it's, being all over social media, which, other leagues, baseball, don't want to embrace any of that stuff, and just, constantly making themselves be the focus of the sports world, even when they're in the off season. Mm-hmm. Look at baseball now. We are complaining because nothing is going on because they're in their off season. Yeah. That doesn't happen in the NFL because, draft's in 2 months. So we're just going to draft.
And moves, trades.
Yes. And we're constantly, we're going to never let you stop knowing that the NFL is out there and it exists.
Yep.
Unlike the other sports where when we go into the off season, we just
Quiet.
we just go radio silent for 3 months and then we come back.
I mean, basketball does a pretty good job in their offseason.
Yes, basketball tries, and basketball's all over the social media thing.
Yeah.
So
Basketball definitely does a really good job. And look, it's always funny when people are like, look at these ratings, you guys suck, blah, blah, blah. No, okay. If you like something, you like something. Who cares about the ratings? It just shows, like, yes, NFL is king. But because the ratings are not good for basketball compared to the NFL, or like baseball compared to this, does it mean I'm not going to watch? Like, if I like this, if I like listening to this, if I like watching it, I'm gonna consume it instead of like constantly like ripping the other. I mean, we kind of just rip the other sports. I get it, but you get what I'm saying is, if you like it, you like it. And it's not going to stop me from watching it. It's just crazy how like the gap as far as viewership go, it's extremely wide. So anyway, the national championship game with Harbaugh, Michigan. Yeah, I think that's going to draw some pretty good ratings. All right, Brent, let's get to it.
who will be a better NFL pro, Michael Penix or Bo Nix?
I mean, Bo Nix had a really good bowl game, except he was playing a Liberty team.
As I say, he's playing Liberty Bibberty.
Liberty, exactly. Liberty would have been in the college football playoff this year, correct? If it was 12 teams.
If it was, yes.
Ooh. As of right now, if you told me they're both healthy for their entire careers, I think I'm going Michael Penix Jr. I just think that he has a better deep ball. I think he's a little more accurate. I think both of them could be really good pros. But if I had to choose one, and the caveat is, don't worry, they're healthy. Because right now, the Michael Penix thing, he might drop because of his injury pass. And that's understandable. I mean, he's got his ACL blown out 2 times. Like, that's going to probably make you fall in the draft. But if you told me they're both healthy for their entire careers, I think I got to take Michael Penix. Who'd you take, Brent?
I don't think either one of them will.
You don't like either one of them as prospects?
No, it's such a hit or miss these days with quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
Look at how many years, whether it's the Darnold draft or whatever, where, there's 6 quarterbacks taking the first round and they're all going to be and they all sucked.
Yeah.
The one guy that was worth a crap out of that draft was the guy nobody talked about, and, with Mahomes and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'd probably just go with Penix just because he's played in bigger games, but I don't know. I think they're both kind of, it's the Spider-Man pointing meme. They're both kind of the same thing. They're just kind of like, hey, it's me, it's you. So yeah. I don't think either one of them really stands out more than the other one. I think they're both about the same.
All right, next question.
Is Jackson Merrill going to play the outfield in 2024?
I mean, at this point, it kind of feels like an inevitability. Like, it feels inevitable that at some point this season, you're going to see Jackson Merrill in the outfield. Do I like it? No, I don't. But they don't have many other options. And if they believe that Jackson Merrill is close to being ready for the big leagues, you're not putting him at shortstop. You're not putting him at second base. You're not going to put him at first base. You have no outfielders right now. As Dennis Lin in his article put Jackson Merrill as an outfielder. I would not like to see that. But I'm thinking as of this moment right now, until other moves happen, until they go out and get a legitimate outfielder, preferably left-handed bat, I think we're going to see Jackson Merrill play some outfield this year.
He's going to be a utility guy.
Yeah, I guess. A guy that's played his, almost entire minor league career as a shortstop. They're going to put him in the outfield.
Yeah, it's here's a sports cliche of the day. It's whatever I can do to help the ball club.
Whatever I can do to help the ball club, except when that always is said about a Padres player, it's not that great. But yes, I do think We are going to see Jackson Merrill in the outfield, even though I disagree with it wholeheartedly. Next question, Brent.
Who wins the national championship, Michigan or Washington?
I think this is going to be a closer game than people think. Michigan -4. It's. I'm going to go with Michigan, just because I think that monkey is off Harbaugh's back. I think the jitters is off. I think him in big games, there's always like this like F up with his teams, and it always usually costs him. But I do think that beating Alabama is going to kind of, have everyone take a sigh of relief type of thing. Because if you lose to Alabama, Harbaugh's probably gone to the NFL anyway. But there's still always going to be that thing that follows him is he can't win the big game. Now, this is the biggest game of his career coming up, but it was against Alabama. Like, that was by far, it was a legacy game. You're going up against the best college football head coach in the history of the sport, Alabama, at the Rose Bowl, when you have failed 2 times before in college football semifinals. I'm taking Michigan.
I picked Michigan on Friday, but I thought they were going to be playing Texas, and I don't know. I kind of feel like they're going to choke.
You think Michigan's going to choke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
well,
I'm going to go with the Huskies. I don't know. I kind of feel like they're going to, like, they peaked with the victory over Alabama to where that might have been, just too much. Now, I don't want to say they're going to overlook Washington, but
yeah. The way that
when you beat Alabama, everything should be smooth sailing from there on out, because as we said, they're the apex of college football, and they have been for a decade. But I don't know. It's like you said, Hardball, whether it was in the NFL or he just always, when it comes to championship time, he always finds a way to screw something up. So I'm gonna go Huskies.
All right, final one, Brett.
But I'm sure I'll change my mind 6 times between now and Monday.
Of course.
Will Yuki Matsui be the future Padres closer?
It's interesting, and we're running up against it here, that there's some new details about Yuki Matsui's contract that would lead you to believe that they believe he's a closer. And we'll get into that in the 5 o'clock hour. The new contract details for Yuki Matsui that have come out that I think is kind of telling everybody that the Padres view him as a closer of the future. So I'm going to say, yes, I think Yuki Matsui is going to be the future Padres closer. We'll get into the details of his contract, which would, tell me and make me believe that he will be the future closer of the Padres, coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Also, Mark Ziegler of the UT joins us at 5 p.m. And coming up next, a modified version of Trainwreck Radio. Call right now, 877-767-4760. We need 2 contestants. 877-767-4760. You are playing for a pair of tickets to see Chicago and Earth, Wind, and Fire at the North Island Credit Union Amphitheater on August 31st. 877-767-4760. We need 2 contestants right now to play in a modified version of Trainwreck Radio. That's coming up next. All right, coming up next, a modified version of Trainwreck Radio. Also, Mark Ziegler of the UT will join us at 5 p.m. All that coming up next. All right, back here on Jon and Jim. Mark Ziegler will join us at the top of the hour. Also, we have another pair of Aztec tickets to give away. Give away those next hour. And some interesting details about the Yuki Matsui deal that would lead you to believe, yeah, that guy's probably going to be the Padres closer in the future. We'll get to those details all coming up next hour. Also, Backpage will return. Did you guys do a Backpage while I was gone?
Yeah, the one day we did.
The one day.
One day we didn't. Something happened the one day to where we talked about that instead of the back page. I can't remember what it was, but some form of breaking news, not legit breaking news, but some form of breaking news happened towards the end of where we stopped. So
okay, well the back page returns today at 5:45. But right now, let's get to this.
Three questions, two contestants, one lifeline. Today's two contestants, we have Joseph and Mark. Joseph, you called in first, so you actually you don't have a choice today because there's no John.
So the modified version of this is they both get me. Yes. Joseph and Mark, they both get me as their lifeline since John is not here.
It's Jim versus Jim today.
It's me versus me. So guess what? I can't lose.
His inner monologue.
I like this better. I like this version of Trainwreck Radio better. The one where I don't lose.
Okay, so what we'll do today then, Joseph, since you called in first, you will get to go first then today instead of getting to pick your partner. So that means, Joseph, you'll go first. Mark, you'll go second. You guys cool with that?
Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
All right, perfect.
All
Brent,
right, guys.
what's the question?
Like Jim said, we're a little up on it, so I'm just going to get right to it. Today's question. Name anybody in the top 10 for career blocks in the NBA. So we're looking for all-time block leaders in the NBA. So all-time career block leaders in the NBA. Anybody in the top 10.
Okay.
And Joseph, you are up first.
Joseph, what's your first guess? You do have your lifeline if you want to use it.
Dikembe Mutombo.
Dikembe Mutombo. It's got to be on the list. Got to be on the list. Good guess, Joseph. Mark, you're up next, my man. What's your first guess? You do have your lifeline if you want to use it.
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Hakeem Olajuwon on the list. I like it. All right, Joseph.
1 and 2 are off the board.
You are up next. What is your second guess? You do have your lifeline if you want to use it.
Shaq.
Shaquille O'Neal. On the list. There we go. Mark, your second guess. You do have your lifeline if you want to use it.
Patrick Ewing.
Patrick Ewing. Ooh, on the list. All right. Tied it 2. Heading the final round. Joseph, what is your final guess? You do have your lifeline if you want to use it.
I'll go with the general, David Robinson.
David Robinson. Very good guess. On the
He was
list.
the admiral, by the way. He went to Navy.
Oh, close enough. General, Admiral.
I know where you're going, though.
All right, Mark. Final guess to send this thing to overtime. What do you got?
I'm going to go with Mark Eaton.
Wow. Okay. On the list. I would have said
Former Jazz guy, great beard. Who would have your guess been?
I would have said either Wilt Chamberlain or Kareem.
Kareem would have been right.
Okay,
Wilt wouldn't.
I would have said Kareem first because Wilt, I'm like, I don't know. But Kareem, he's on the block list because he played forever. I mean,
Kareem's third.
All right, perfect.
All right, so now we are going to go into overtime. The way overtime works is I'm going to ask you guys a question. When I'm done asking you a question, you guys are going to yell out the name of, well, actually, we can't do that today because you guys both had Jim. So you're going to you'll yell out your name today. So Joseph, you yell Joseph. Mark, you yell Mark. Okay? So whoever yells out their name first, you are either going to win the game by getting the question right or you're going to lose the game by getting it wrong. I know we have rule changes today. But you guys got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, guys. Today's overtime question. Where is Victor Wembanyama from?
Joseph.
I heard Joseph. Where is he from?
France.
Wow. The winner. Convincing win by Joseph. Honestly. Convincing win. And that means I win today. I win. The next 2 days I win. Suck it, John.
Hey, with your win-loss record of this game, I'd take any win that you could get.
I need a couple wins under my belt. I need a couple easy dubs because I don't know what my overall record of Jon and Jim is, but it's probably not great. So I will take any win where I can get it. But congratulations. Speak, Jim. Joseph, for winning a pair of tickets to see Chicago and Earth, Wind, and Fire at the North Island Credit Union Amphitheater on August 31st. Of course, tickets and info is at livenation.com. What did we miss on the top 10 block list?
Here's a list. Akeem was number 1.
Okay.
Dikembe was 2.
All right.
Kareem was 3. Mark Eaton and his great beard were 4.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Duncan was 5. Then David Robinson was 6. Ewing was 7. Shaq was 8.
Yeah.
This was the oddball one. If somebody guessed this one, I was going to be like, Google. Tree Rollins was number 9. Yeah, exactly.
Great name for all-time block list.
I remember him, but
Tree.
It was a poll, put it that way. And then number 10 was the Chief, Robert Parrish, at 10. So.
Okay, there you go. Tree Robinson. Is that his name?
No, Tree Rollins.
Tree Rollins.
He played in like the early 90s.
Oh,
I think he also played for the Jazz, if I remember right.
Tree Rollins. I've never heard of that name before in my entire life.
Well, because he played like before you were born.
That is true. That is very true. All right. So congratulations, Joseph, there. All right. Coming up next, Mark Ziegler of the UT will join us, talk about the Aztecs and as they head into conference play tomorrow night. Also, we'll get to some interesting contract details with Yuki Matsui. All that coming up next in the final hour of Jon and Jim. All right, this update is brought to you by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. Aztecs coming off their huge win versus Gonzaga. Start conference play tomorrow night at Viejas Arena versus Fresno State. 6:30 tip-off. 6:30 is pregame right here on San Diego Sports 760. In the college football playoff semifinals yesterday, Michigan beat Alabama at the Rose Bowl 27-20 in overtime. Washington beat Texas 37-31. Washington and Michigan will face off in the national title game next Monday night in Houston. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code SPORTS because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions do apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details today. All right, final hour on Jon and Jim. Happy New Year to everybody out there. Jon will be back with us on Thursday. He's dealing with some family right now. So well wishes to Jon. Be back with us Thursday. Everything's okay with him, but give him a couple days off here. And Aztecs coming off their biggest win of the season so far versus Gonzaga on the road on Friday night. They start conference play tomorrow night at Viejas Arena versus Fresno State. Of course, you can listen to that game right here on San Diego Sports 760. And it's great to be joined right now by Mark Ziegler of the UT. Mark, Happy New Year. How are you doing, man?
Doing great. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. So their win over Gonzaga last Friday night, they had many great wins in 2023, but for this season alone, just how big of a win was that? True road game against Gonzaga, 13th ranked in the country, quad one win. Just how much of a resume stamp was that win over Gonzaga?
Well, when you look at what they have done up to that point in the first 12 games, they were 10-2. They didn't have any bad losses, but there were a bunch of shaky wins in there. I mean, there were 2 overtime wins, 2 last second sort of buzzer beater type wins after pretty incredible late comebacks. So it wasn't really that convincing, I think, to a lot of people, and maybe not even to themselves. But being able to go into a place where Gonzaga was 88-1 in their previous 89 home games, nobody can win in there, and nobody wants to play in there. And to A, play there, and B, win in there, I just think it sent a message to everybody else in the conference that, look, these guys are for real. They're going to be the favorites until somebody knocks them off. And I maybe convince themselves a little bit that, they're a legit team, that they can have a legit season and they don't sort of have to ride on last year's accolades.
And one thing it didn't convince, and look, I personally don't really care about the AP polls. I think that the metrics, like the advanced metrics, KenPom and net rankings, like those matter way more. But were you surprised they weren't in the top 25 AP poll?
A little bit. I mean, but being a voter myself and understanding a little bit of how the voting works, I mean, the way people do it is it's a computer program and you flow in last week's ballot, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of starting over every week and putting in 25 teams, you flow in last week's ballot and you can move teams up or down. And so I think the way a lot of voters do it is, and I do it too, you stick in last week's ballot and then you start, moving teams down or up based on how they did. And then when you get to the bottom of the ballot, well, if someone in the bottom 5 lost, you kick them out, and then you look for a team to put in. But only one team dropped out last week, and that was Creighton. And not everyone kicked Creighton out. But, so one team basically left, and people are looking for a team to put in, and they put in Auburn, which has a similar record, not the same kind of win that San Diego State just had, but better metrics. And so it was just kind of a choice between those 2 teams. I think a lot of people would. You never going to see if somebody had somebody 26th.
Yeah.
And so, and also the week before they were on 1 of 63 ballots. Mm. So they went from 1 ballot, to about half the ballots now. And so they made improvement, but to go from 34th overall into the top 25 is a really big jump. And so it just looks weird, but I'm not trying to defend the poll, but that's kind of what happened. And I think it's actually a good thing because, look, I think it keeps a little bit of a chip on their shoulder this week with 2 conference games to open the season, and there won't be a letdown, or there shouldn't be a letdown from that big win.
Yeah, and look, the way the Mountain West Conference is this year, if they do, they're going to be ranked if they take care of business. Like this conference, is really good this season as far as the non-conference goes. So if they keep winning, they'll probably find their way into the AP top 25. And a lot of people that were upset about that won't have to be upset anymore. But Mark Ziegler joining us of the UT on Jon and Jim. As far as their overall non-conference went, Mark, how would you say it went for them? Do you think it went as good as it could have gone, or do you think they could have done better?
I think it went about as well as it could have gone. I mean, I think if you looked at it in the beginning, you would have said, all right, BYU and Gonzaga on the road, those are almost impossible to win in either of those. And so best case scenario, they come out of it 11-2. Well, they came out of it 11-2. But I think you have to look at it less from a record standpoint than from an improvement standpoint. And what we saw last year with last year's team is they made a big jump right in and around Christmas and finals week, because that's where they get a 10-day break for finals. And then they get another break for Christmas. And one is all about practicing and getting better themselves. And the other one is just about rest and relaxation, getting away from the team and the game a little for a couple of days, getting with family and then recharging. And in both cases, the team took a big jump. Last year, they had to sort of reinvent themselves with their offense, and they did that during that period. This year, they went back to the basics a little bit on defense, got healthy, put in some offensive wrinkles. And you can just see the improvement. It's a different team that played at Gonzaga. And look, I wasn't that surprised they won it there. I went to every practice that week before, and they were the best practices of the season by far. And the team was healthy, and they were committed. They were focused. And so I think from that standpoint, they are right on schedule compared to last year in terms of the improvement, the steps they made. Now, we're going to find out a lot about how much they improve with the conference schedule. Because, like you said, this is a brutal conference, and they're going to take some losses in it, and they just have to sort of stay the course to stay healthy.
Mark Ziegler joining us here on Jon and Jim. You've been saying it with us repeatedly for the last couple of weeks, is that Darion Trammell, like the breakout game's coming. The breakout game's coming, and the breakout game definitely came at the right time versus Gonzaga in that first half. I thought he played as well as he played against Alabama in the tournament last year. Is that like the final missing piece for this team, is getting that scoring from him off the bench? Because they feel like a completely different team when you can bring in a guy like Darion Trammell and put up 15 points and a half and just almost be perfect.
Yeah, I was actually joking with him about that. I told him the other day, I said, dude, I've been telling anybody who listen, you're going to have a breakout game and you haven't had it yet. Yeah. I'm starting to look bad. So you got to pick me up here. And after the game, we had a chuckle about it. But yeah, I mean, you could see it coming just because the way he was practicing, and he's a guy who puts in a lot of time in the gym. And the thing about his shoulder injury, it wasn't just that it really limited in games. I mean, I don't think he could pass with his left hand, and it cut out a lot of reps in practice. But it prevented him, even in the first month after he came back, from doing extra work that he always does, extra shooting work. He was out there today again after practice, just firing up threes in rapid succession, simulating game situations. And so, yeah, that is a huge piece, because, Lamont Butler is really kind of been a little bit of an enigma this season offensively. He's been fine defensively, but he's been really up and down. And he just went from his best game of the season to probably his worst in space of 4 days. And so when you have someone like Darion Trammell who can pick up that void and fill that void with 15 first half points against Gonzaga on the road, who has really good guards. I mean, they have, Ryan Nembhard and Nolan Hickman are two of the best guards in the West Coast. To be able to do that there, that was huge, and it will be going forward. It just gives them another weapon offensively, and this team has a lot of them. And now it's to the point where they have 5 or 6 or 7 offensive weapons. They just got to get like 3 of them going in any given night, and they're going to be fine.
Yeah, and looking at the offensive weapons they have, I thought in that game, Reese Waters, to me, hit probably the biggest shot of the game, but don't count out what Miles Bird did in that game as well. Hit a 3 in the corner when it was, I believe, down to 3 or maybe 2. And for him to be in the closing lineup on the road against Gonzaga, that's probably, to me, his breakout game of his career. Just how much confidence do you think he gained from that game against Gonzaga?
Yeah, and you've got to give credit to Brian Dutcher for that, because I don't think a lot of coaches in the country would have the guts to play a guy that green in a game like that, in that situation where they're watching a 15-point lead, dwindle down to 2 or 3, and you just stick with him because he's doing some good things. He grew up a lot in that game and in the last few before that. And part of that is just, Brian Dutcher having faith that, look, I got to look at the big picture. And if I don't get him quality, it's not just minutes, it's quality minutes in pressure situations where he has to deliver. You have to be able to make a mistake and then come back and not pout, not make two mistakes because of it. And that's a learning process. And if he doesn't do that in November and December, he's not going to have that player in February. And so that was huge for, they're going to get a game at Colorado State or at New Mexico or at Nevada or at Boise where, Butler's not going or Trammell gets in foul trouble or Parrish isn't playing well. Something's going to happen and they're going to need Miles Bird and he's going to have to step up. And I think that game, like you said, kind of gave him the confidence. You can just see it in the way he carries himself just to, you can see the talent is there. Now it's just eliminating the mistakes or reducing them. And he's moving in that direction.
Mark, we talked about it briefly, but the Mountain West Conference is fantastic this year. It feels like if everything shakes out how the metrics say it's going to shake out, this could be a 5-bid conference. Is this the toughest you've seen the Mountain West Conference in recent memory?
Yeah, the last time it was this good was 2013 when they got 5 teams in, but that was, it was a different era for this conference, and there'd been some really lean years in between where it was a 1-bid league, and to see it get to 4 the last 2 years, and I think it's for sure a 4-bid league this year based on the non-conference resumes, and it could be 5 I don't think you'll get to 6 just because a lot of crazy stuff would happen, and I think they're all going to beat up each other, and some teams are going to drop a little bit of metrics, but Colorado State, Nevada, New Mexico, and San Diego State are sitting really well. Utah State is 13-1. They really haven't played anybody yet, and we'll find out how they do. I suspect they're probably going to fall off a little bit, but if they don't, they've got the metrics to support, a bid. Boise State doesn't have the metrics right now, but also plays the hardest schedule. And they're going to be hard to beat at home. They have enough talent and enough experience and a really good coaching staff that they're going to be right there as well. So when you look at those 6 teams and then you add UNLV into the mix, UNLV probably has the most talented roster. They're just really new. They're all over the map. They lose to Southern, they lose to Hofstra, but then they blow out Creighton. So they haven't played very much on the road. We'll find out a lot from them. Their conference opener is Saturday here at Viejas on Big Boy CBS national TV, type of game they'll get up for. And they're going to be a problem for some teams too. They're going to knock off some of the top teams as well. So there's 7 really good teams, which means you're going to have 12 ridiculously hard games, half of those on the road. And it's just going to be every night. And which team can kind of just sort of, deal with losses and not let it get to them, not take a long losing streak, win at home. That kind of team will win. But as I'm just writing a story right now, you could have a champion with 5 losses. That's never happened in Mountain West history. 4 probably gets it done, but 5 might get you a piece of it.
Wow. Yeah. Conference schedule starts tomorrow night for San Diego State versus Fresno State. Of course, you can listen to that game right here on San Diego Sports 760. Mark, Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch up with you soon, okay?
All right. My pleasure. Talk to you guys.
All right. Mark Ziegler there of the UT. Yeah, it's going to be, people can crap on the Mountain West all you want, but basketball this year, Brent, every game is going to make John freak out. Every single game. And that's what you want. You want to have a strong conference. You want to be battle tested for the tournament. You don't want to go through a crappy conference and then get to the tournament and go, oh my gosh, what? Like, the stronger your conference is, the better I think it is for your chances to make not only the NCAA tournament, but make some noise in the tournament. I know the last couple of years, besides San Diego State last year, the Mountain West Conference has been over. Like, they have not been able to get a win under their belt until San Diego State went on the magical run to the national championship game. For at least the last, 3-4 years? It's felt like forever since, take away what San Diego State did, but just everybody else in the conference, including San Diego State before last year, could not pick up a win in March Madness.
No, it's going to help for the rest of the conference to also be good, because how many times do we hear John go, oh, it's not good though, because Colorado State lost to so-and-so, so that's going to make us drop because they lost, and it's going to make us look,
yeah.
We'll let John get into the weeds.
John can get in the weeds,
but you know what I mean, is it's it benefits the Aztecs a lot more if the whole conference as a whole is good.
Exactly. And it's going to be a cage match, hell in a cell, whatever you want to call it. It is going to be absolutely brutal. But the good thing is, if you're an Aztecs fan, the Aztecs have a really good team. So it's not going to be something where they're going to be underdogs in every game. But there might be a couple games where they go into Colorado State and it's going to be tough, and they'll probably be underdogs, maybe, depending on how Colorado State plays and how things shape up. But I saw a quick graphic that said what the Ken Palm, I guess, projections were for each team. And there was 5 teams that were all 12-3 in the conference. It was ridiculous. It was what? So San Diego State, they start conference play tomorrow night, Fresno State. You can listen to that game right here on San Diego Sports 760. I mentioned that there was some interesting details about the Yuki Matsui deal and why it would make you believe that, okay, this guy's going to be the closer. Okay, eventually he's going to earn the closer role. So in an article by the AP, it says here that Yuki Matsui can earn $33.6 million over 5 seasons with the Padres if he becomes the team's closer. And the pitcher could opt out of the deal after 3 years and $14.5 million if his pitching elbow remains healthy. That's such an AJ Preller move. Hey, by the way, if you're healthy with us, you can opt out. But if your arm blows up, you're stuck with us. And then it turns into a bad contract. Or at least just it turns into wasted money.
It shouldn't be the other way around.
If your arm blows up, shouldn't you be able to just opt out of the deal?
Yeah, if your arm falls off, we can cut you. If it stays on, we're going to keep you.
Now, I get it. If your arm blows up, you're not going to opt out because no one's going to pick you up. So, of course, you're going to stay with the team. But it's interesting that he has these incentives in his deal. And we were talking about this. Okay, the Yuki Matsui deal happened. And I remember me and John both said, we'll know if they view him as a closer or not just by the terms in the agreement. And the terms of the agreement didn't fully come out when they announced it. It was just a 5-year deal, $28 million. And you're like, oh, cool. That's nice. About $5.5 million a year. But now seeing that if he becomes the closer, he's going to be paid more money. And then if his elbow blows up, then he is going to be on the team. But if his elbow doesn't blow up and he's healthy after 3 years, he can opt out. So that's interesting. It says here in the AP article, this is wow. If he does have Tommy John surgery or has any elbow injury causing more than 130 consecutive days on the injured list spanning 2024 and 2025, the Padres have a conditional $7 million option for 2028. If the conditions for the team option aren't met, Matsui has a $7 million player option for 2028. Matsui has a $1.4 million in annual escalators that would increase his salary in the following seasons if earned from 2024 to 2027. He would get $150,000 for 15 games finished, $250,000 for each 25, 35, and 45 games, and $500,000 for 55 games. So basically what they're putting in here is hey, if you're healthy and you're pitching, you're going to make some money. Which I'm cool with. But the biggest thing here is that if he becomes a closer, he's going to be making more money. And his deal, salaries of $3.25 million this year, $5.5 million in 2025, $5.75 million in 2026, and $6.5 million in 2027, and $7 million in 2028. So if he remains healthy and he does not opt out after 3 years, if you're paying a guy $6.5 and $7 million, you probably view him as a closer, or at least a high leverage back into the bullpen guy. You're not paying a guy $6.5 or $7 million just to be a situational pitcher. You're not. So that's interesting. It's interesting. Yuki Matsui, Padres closer. I hope it works out. I really do, because if it does, then this contract will look good. If it doesn't, you're going to not cry over $5.5 million a year average annual value. But you are going to look at it like another reliever they signed in free agency, didn't work out. They signed Robert Suarez to all this money to be the closer that he's slated to be right now. And I mean, let's call a spade a spade. He had a horrible year last year. His injuries matched with when he did come back did not look as dominant as he was in 2022. And getting suspended for 10 games for the sticky stuff. Like last year for Robert Suarez did not really give me much confidence that this guy is going to be the lockdown closer for this team that they expected him to be once they signed him to this deal. So with that, it makes you question. And if Yuki Matsui, hopefully, turns into a quality bullpen piece that doesn't have to rest, and can pitch potentially 3 days in a row, right?
For 4 outs,
For
if
4
necessary.
outs. Then you feel a little better about things. But it's all dependent if Robert Suarez returns to his 2022 self and if Yuki Matsui stays healthy and kind of lives up to this contract and kind of lives up to his stats that he had in Japan.
I wouldn't be totally opposed to, even if we have like a similar setup to what Milwaukee had when they had a Hader, to where they had, Devin Williams as the setup guy who was, lights out and a great closer just in himself. And then you had Hader. So it's almost like you had back-to-back elite, closers that you'd have to face in the 8th and the 9th.
Mm-hmm.
And they could be setting that up with a Suarez Suzuki type of a deal.
Potentially, but we don't even know if Yuki Matsui is going to translate to the big leagues.
I know. I'm just saying on paper, because we don't, like I said, we won't know anything until they show up for spring training.
Right. We don't know anything until spring training. But as of right now, I think they view Yuki Matsui as like a high leverage guy. Like, why would you give him this contract if you're going to play him like for matchups? Like, oh, he's going to face left-handed batters. I think they view him as a potential 7th, 8th, 9th inning guy in the future. So we'll see how that goes. But as of right now, a lot of question marks with this team. A lot of question marks. And Dennis Lin wrote an interesting article yesterday detailing all the question marks with this team. We'll get into that coming up next.
Start anywhere. It's with this sentence and this sentence alone. Joe Flacco is elite.
All right, guys. Thanks for the super chats, JD Gaucho. My apologies, not getting to those. Says the last University of Washington versus Texas play pass interference. Nah, not pass interference. It was a good play. The ball was thrown a little too high, and I think the cornerback made a good play. If anything, it was a bad throw. If he threw it kind of like on a line, I think he gives the receiver a pretty good shot to make that catch. It was a bad throw. And also from JD, thanks for the super. He says, favorite Pop-Tart flavor, Jim. S'mores for me. Mine is easily raspberry, the OG flavor. What's your favorite flavor Pop-Tart? Peach? Brent loves peach. I like raspberry. Give me the OG. Thanks, JD Gotcha. Appreciate the super chat. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe. Appreciate all the support. And we'll be back after this break.
All right, coming up next, who's going to be in the outfield for the Padres this year? We'll talk about that coming up next. All right, this update is brought to you by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. Aztecs coming off their huge win versus Gonzaga. Start conference play. Turn my headphones down there. Start conference play tomorrow night versus Fresno State. Of course, you can listen to that game right here on San Diego Sports 760. In the college football semifinals yesterday, Michigan beat Alabama in overtime 27-20. And Washington beat Texas 37-31. Washington will now take on Michigan in the national championship game Monday night in Houston. Michigan right now is a 4-point favorite. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code SPORTS because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions do apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details today. So, talked about it earlier in the show how I'm a little more worried about the Padres than I was a couple weeks ago. Even though I said a couple weeks ago, yeah, you know what? Look, there's no way that once spring training starts, you're going to have 34 men on your active 40-man roster. They're not just going to have 6 open roster spots. They're going to fill up these spots. I'm not too worried about it right now. I'm a little concerned, but I'm also not going to flip out DEFCON 1 mode it. Get in today. After reading Dennis's article yesterday, I'm like, I'm a little more worried. It's just the natural nature of me as a person. Like, I can say I'm not worried, but then I get worried. Like, I want everything to happen now. I can't. I'm not good with patience at all. Like, I can't wait. I want things done right now. If I want something, I want to get it right now. I don't want to wait. I almost obsess over trying to get something. Like last year, a couple months ago, I was really obsessive over getting some new golf clubs. And I was like, I got to get these golf clubs. So I'm not good with waiting. And I went out and got the golf clubs, but I'm not good with waiting. I want things to happen now. So when you see this almost wait and, waiting approach from AJ Preller after what we've seen the last 3-4 years from him, 4 or 5 years potentially. I get it. If you're a fan, you're like, hello, when are you going to make a move? Is your phone working?
Hey, it could be worse. You could be my Cubs, who have done jack squat. We haven't signed a free agent. We haven't made a trade. We haven't done anything.
Well, you got Craig Counsell.
Yeah, I guess that counts.
Counts as a
something.
move.
That's something.
You did something.
You're right. You got me. We did something.
But yeah, it's not like you're the A's, even though they made a move. It's not like you're I was going to say Royals, but they actually made a bunch of moves. It's not like you're the, give me a team, the Miami Marlins, right? Not like they've done some things. And there was a report that the Padres were actually kind of surprised that they got outbid for Jung-Hoo Lee. Well, probably because you offered Jung-Hoo Lee maybe $60 million less than what the Giants offered him. Like, I never saw a Jung-Hoo Lee signing here just because of the money. Any top free agent, I just never saw signing here. I just never did. And with the moves that they need to still make and the needs they still have, I think that the trade market, right, is going to be something that they're going to have to really rely on. Because I don't see them making many signings, if any. Like, it's going to be either promotions to the big league roster to add to the 40-man, or it's going to be trades. That's how they're going to fill out their final six roster spots of the remaining 40-man roster.
I think it's going to be a lot. I think it'll be similar to, you remember how they constructed the Miami Heat when LeBron and D Wade and all them were there, to where all the money was invested in those three dudes. So then they had to fill out the rest of their roster with Richard Jefferson.
Well, that was also a situation
like
where.
So I just think it's going to be similar to where they'll finish the Padres roster out, but it's going to be with, guys that are making league minimum or just mid-level guys that, it's not going to be any big money guys. Like I said earlier, it's going to be a bunch of, who the hell are these guys, just to fill out the rotation, or not the rotation, but just to fill out the lineup. And a lot of that, there's been that portion of the fan base that has been, we can't just buy players. We need to, have a combination of players that we bought and then players that, came up from the farm system. And well, we're going to get players from the farm system this year, whether they're ready or not. They're going to have to come up and contribute this year.
Yeah,
I just don't see any scenario where they can do it without them.
Well, that's the problem, is you're relying on heavily, potentially, on a farm system that has not produced for you, at least on the field. It's produced in trades because you've been able to take these highly rated prospects and flip them for major league talent. But when it's a situation where you have to rely on the farm system to be big contributors for this team, it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. So filling out the rest of their roster, needing a DH, a left and center fielder, preferably one of those is a left-handed bat, bench help, a left-handed starter, and another reliever. I mean, yeah, you have enough roster spots open to fill those, but like, to actually fill those needs, it's going to be difficult. And every single day that passes until spring training, which is, by the way, next month, you get more nervous and more nervous and more nervous, which I don't blame you. I'm starting to get more nervous as well, thinking to myself, wait, it's January 2nd. Hello, Preller. Are you going to make a move? And there's some interesting trade pieces out there. I think one of the most interesting ones that would definitely fill a lot of needs, Max Kepler, who is a guy on the Twins who would definitely be a guy that might cost you a lot, and he's not going to be here for long. But at the same time, would you want Jackson Merrill out in the outfield or a guy like Max Kepler? You know, Anthony Santander. I said that name right. He's another guy in the outfield that you possibly could get. You know, I know that Dylan Carlson of the Cardinals, Harrison Bader's another guy that's a free agent out there that would not cost you a lot of money, but he's not really like filling that need that you he's just kind of filling a spot. Is a guy like, Harrison Bader really giving you that actual person that you need to fit to help your team out?
For me, if Harrison Bader would be just like, I won't even know if I'd say it's an upgrade. It'd be just like if they would have kept Grissom. Only
Right.
he doesn't strike out looking as much.
Yeah, Trent Grisham was actually a better outfielder.
Bader's not a horrible outfielder. He's got some decent speed. He's not Ken Griffey Jr. or anything like that, but he's about the same as what Grisham was. Only I think he was a right-handed bat instead of a lefty, and he doesn't strike out looking as much. But
hey, if you don't strike out looking, you can be on my team.
Granted, it's hard to strike out looking more than what Grisham did, but still.
Also, as long as you're not bunting with the bases loaded and less than 2 outs, like, you're good to go for me. You're good to go. 844. Wow, I almost said the wrong number. 877-767-4760. 877-767-4760. Let's go to Larry on line 2. Larry, Happy New Year, man. How you doing?
Hey, Happy New Year, fellas. Good evening. You know what? I'm sorry. We had 4 black holes in the batting order last year and decent pitching. And this year, I'm sorry. This has the potential for 100-plus loss team this year. I'll be the first one to say it. This is looking dismal. Thank God for the Aztecs. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Larry, for the very uplifting call there.
They're not going to lose 100 games.
The only way they lose 100 games is if they all get injured. Like if Manny and Xander.
Yeah, everyone has to get hurt, or they have to trade everyone that's left.
Musgrove and Darvish. Like if they get injured, if there's a significant amount of injuries on this team, then yeah, I could see 90+ losses. I really could. But that's just how thin the margins are with this team. Is if you lose a key guy, probably more likely in the rotation than like if at any point next year, Brent, Darvish, Musgrove, or King miss significant time, that's a major problem. Because you don't have much else behind them. I mean, Matt Waldron can fill in for a couple spot starts. Pedro Avila might actually be pushed into the rotation, honestly, next year. But like, you don't have anybody behind them to fill a prolonged injury if one of those guys get injured. So you're going to have to rely on really everybody to be healthy. The main guys to be healthy for the entire year. You need Manny to play 155+ games. You need Xander to play 150+ games. You need Tatis to play 150+ games. You need Joe and Darvish and King to make 30 starts. Like, you need Ha-Seong Kim to perform at the level he did last year this season, even in a contract year. It's going to hurt once he becomes a free agent, but you need him to perform like he did last season. If those things happen, right, then I would say this is I would be confident in saying it's a playoff team. 84, 85 wins, 86 tops, which is a playoff team.
Yeah, I don't know. I just can't see us going from, even for as poorly as we played last year to where all of a sudden now we don't have Soto and, Hader and Snell. And now all of a sudden we're the A's.
Right.
That's
what I don't get is people saying, "Oh, it's a rebuilding year." It's not a rebuilding year.
That's why I said last week when you were gone that in my opinion, my definition of a rebuild is you get rid of everybody, or you get rid of like 90%. So out of last year's big 4, you might keep one of them. You're not going to keep more or 2 or more. You're going to get rid of everybody, because if you're rebuilding, if I say I'm going to rebuild my house, I'm going to tear down my house and I'm going to build it from scratch. Otherwise, you're just remodeling. You're not really rebuilding. So I don't think they're in a rebuild yet. They have to get rid of more pieces for it to be a rebuild for me.
Yeah, this is not a rebuild at all for me. It isn't. So let's go to the text line real quick here. 70470. Start your message with team. 619 number said Merrill played some outfield in the minors last year. Tatis seemed to do fine with the move. Lighten up, Jim. Okay, fine.
Lighten up, Francis.
Let me just not care at all. Like, I'm sorry. I like you can't tell me that Merrill being put in the outfield as a rookie who might not even be ready for the big leagues isn't like concerning. I'm sorry. I'm not going to lighten up. I'm not. I found these to start the show pretty funny. 714 is Jim's New Year's resolution to be less of an idiot. Another 619 number says, let's see here. Wait, hold on. Where is it? Oh yeah. Welcome back, Jim. We didn't really miss you, but welcome back. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. All right, coming up next, my back page return. Stay right here. All right, coming up next, the return of my back page. Stay with us. All right, final segment here on Jon and Jim. Happy New Year to everybody out there. Jon will be back with us on Thursday. So, unfortunately, you get another day with just me and Brent.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. That's your present. No Jon, just me and Brent. I know that 619 number says, JR, don't listen to these haters. You're an idiot, but you're our idiot. Thanks. I appreciate you. It's a lot. Yeah. There's always a lot of trolling that happens on social media, but or just in general, like I don't really care. It's funny though. People are like, "Oh, you're an idiot," and I know you're joking, and I know everyone's joking, so it doesn't like bother me as much. I actually prefer it. It's like just bring it on. Just keep calling me a dumbass, an idiot, whatever you want. It's okay. I can handle it. All right, Brent, let's get to it. All right, so I know you have a back page story for us,
Yes.
Brent. We'll get to that coming up after this story. So this is more like a sports story, but it's kind of wild to see this happen. Did you see the owner for the Panthers, David Tepper, what he did yesterday?
He threw a drink at a fan or something.
Yeah, so after the Panthers lost to, I believe it was the Jags.
Yeah, it was. Thanks to that number 1 pick, Carolina.
Oh, yeah, good job. I mean, the Panthers are an absolute joke of a franchise. I might give a lot of crap to Dean Spanos, rightfully so. But David Tepper's up there with the likes of Dean Spanos and who's the owner of the Bears?
Oh, the McCaskies.
The McCaskies, yeah. If you want to put them in like the worst owners in the NFL, go right ahead because they all suck. And David Tepper, who just has ruined that franchise from the jump by making all of these moves, trading away the number 1 pick for, I mean, Bryce Young is not it. I'm sorry. It's not it. I don't see it. He's small. He doesn't have this, like, if he showed the same things that Kyler Murray has showed, then you could see it. But you see none of that with Bryce Young. Sorry. You see none of it. But David Tepper, after the game, where they got their ass kicked, had a drink and like threw it on a fan out of his suite in Carolina. And the NFL today fined David Tepper.
Oh, good.
Who is a multi-billionaire. You want to know his net worth, Brent? $20.6 billion.
Oh, God. Now I feel like you're going to tell me they fined him like $50.
Well, essentially they did because they fined him $300,000. That the equivalent to finding an average American. Like if you took the numbers and you're like, okay, we're going to find an average American the same amount as we just fined David Tepper, would come out to $1.77. Well, what are we doing? Like an owner of a team just threw a beverage on a fan.
Wait, hold on. You hear that? That's a slap in the wrist.
Slap on the wrist. I mean, okay. If you want this guy to continue to ruin a franchise in the NFL, go right ahead. But yeah, the guy's a loser. Just complete loser energy from that guy throwing a drink on a fan. Just ridiculous. So today is January 2nd, but yesterday, New Year's Day, was a very big day for Disney. Do you know why, Brent?
Oh, because they Steamboat Willie became public domain.
Yep.
They already have a horror movie.
They do.
Yep. Trailers came out today.
Steamboat Willie, the original Mickey Mouse cartoon drawing.
Yeah, the original one. Yeah.
The original one. Disney lost its copyright to the first ever version of Mickey Mouse, 1/1/24. So it's up for grabs. I mean, you can do whatever you want with that now.
Disney, did you learn nothing from Pooh, Blood, and Honey? Don't let these things go to public domain.
No, because now you're going to have these really crazy movies.
They
with
already
like,
have it. I saw the trailer today where it's like a deformed Mickey like hacking up co-eds.
Oh boy.
Pretty much. It looks like a Five Nights at Freddy's ripoff, only with Mickey Mouse.
Oh, Mickey Mouse is public domain. Oh boy. That was my best Mickey Mouse. The throat's
That's not a bad Mickey Mouse.
The throat's a little groggy today when you have 10 days off of talking every second of every day. It's a little tough. But that's my best Mickey Mouse of the year so far. And it's January 2nd. It'll get better. Brent, do you have a story for the back page here?
I do. Hundreds of rare sealed Nintendo and Sega games were discovered in a Nebraska storage facility by a video game reseller. And they're saying that all the games are Sega Nintendo games from the 80s and 90s.
Oh my God.
They include Super Nintendo, Sega CD, Genesis, Saturn, and 3DO games that were all put into storage after a local store closed down in 94. And they haven't been touched since they got put in storage all the way back in 94. The collection itself is estimated, they haven't been graded yet, but it's supposed to be over $10,000. But
Jeez.
a couple of the games in there, the rarest sealed games in there include a game called Chrono Trigger, which was a role-playing game for Super Nintendo, which is valued at over $2,400 according to Price Charting. It's a website that tracks the value of classic games. Also was a Super Nintendo version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time, which is worth over $1,400. Final Fantasy 3 unopened, which is worth over $1,200, and a copy of Sunset Riders, which is the precursor to all the Red Dead Redemption games, that was worth over $750. But they said that it could be worth even more once they get graded. So they said just off the bat, they could be worth $10,000, but it could go up to where anywhere $50,000, depending on how they're graded.
Dude, doesn't all this make you like upset that you never saved your video games, or like you didn't go out and buy these games and just like keep them?
Well, that's all my stuff. It's like I go to comic shops and like look around. It's like I had that. Granted, all my stuff was broke. Dude, I played with it when I was a kid, but
I'm like, I mean, obviously when you're a kid, you have no concept of like keeping things and all that. You want to play with them right away. But man, did I have a lot of these games. And it just is like, oh, cool. I could have kept that and made like a couple grand off that. Oh, cool. I could have kept that Pokemon card and got it graded and made $100,000.
Yeah, because like between me and my cousin Keith, we had like every G.I. Joe, every He-Man, we had all the Batman, we had all that stuff.
It makes you wonder now, like, should you just go out and buy stuff right now and just like keep it?
Well, that's why I am the way I'm. Like when we go to Comic-Con, like I bought this Funko, zombie Iron Man, which is worth nothing, but I am afraid to open it.
Yeah.
It's on display in my house in the box because I'm afraid to open it. Because as soon as I open it, with my luck, it's all of a sudden going to become worth like $1,000.
Yeah.
So I'm just petrified to open it.
I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. But yeah, a lot of FOMO there. All right. Want to thank Brent. Want to thank all you out there. John, I'm thinking of you, buddy. He'll be back with us on Thursday. Thank you to Mark Ziegler for joining us. And we'll be back tomorrow. Aztecs basketball returns. Conference play starts tomorrow night. Until then, have a great night, everybody.